Guys, check out the killer record cases and stereo furniture at sidetrackedworkshop.com. Get your vinyl out of the crate and display your records in style. Save 15% with discount code TVG at checkout. That's sidetrackedworkshop.com.
And now, on with the show. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 456 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for fans and collectors of vinyl records. And guess what, gang? I am traveling again. I'm back in California for the next several weeks, doing some family stuff, but I'm making plenty of time to attend record fairs, checking out more record shops, visiting some artists, which is getting pretty exciting. Lots is happening. I can't wait to share. You can follow my misadventures in real time on our Instagram page at Vinyl Guide. However, I'm keen to crack into this week's episode because I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's Al Barile of SS Decontrol, or SSD, and Xclaim Records. Now, for many weeks, Al and his wife Nancy and I, we were going back and forth, trying to work out dates for the interview, and that wasn't easy since Al's dealing with some major health issues. He's battling cancer at the moment. This interview had to be scheduled around chemotherapy sessions, and I'm not sharing anything that he doesn't share himself. And in fact, Al was unexpectedly hospitalized after we captured just part of the interview. So what you're going to hear today is an amalgamation of a few conversations I had with Al. And I really got to take a moment to say that Al and Nancy are incredibly gracious, benevolent with their time, and extraordinarily brave, and determined to minimize any disruption to their lives due to the complications from Al's health. And I certainly hope that if I ever have cancer or get seriously sick, I'll be as brave and resolute as Al and Nancy are on this. So today, Al shares the story of recording and making the vinyl pressings of the extremely rare and collectible hardcore masterpieces, SSD's The Kids Will Have Their Say and Get It Away. Both records were out of print for 40 plus years, only bootleg circulating, and if you could find an original copy, well, you were paying $1,000 plus for one in any decent shape. Only recently have these two records had official reissues, beautifully cleaned up audio. Those are available at trustrecordscompany.com. I strongly encourage everyone to go check out the SSD albums, bug your local record shop, or go to trustrecordcompanies.com. Also, Al and Nancy have an Xclaim shop. They do SSD merchandise and clothing and even instruments. Xclaim.bigcartel.com. There they have the SSD book, How Much Art Can You Take? It's a visual trip through the SSD world of the early 80s. The pictures are gorgeous, very clear, and they also have a lot of original flyers in the book, essays on the SSD timeline. It's very cool. So you could check that out and more at xclaim.bigcartel.com. And by the way, there's an extended version of this interview up at patreon.com/vinylguide. If you enjoy our show and you want to show your appreciation to your buddy Nate here, well, join us at patreon.com/vinylguide. I always put extra stuff up there. Episodes are available early. They're always commercial free, high resolution for you audio nerds, and most are extended like the one we have today. Lots more conversation with Al on all things SSD and Xclaim, available now at patreon.com/vinylguide. And also, Al wanted me to play this message to everyone today.
I just think everyone should go get a colonoscopy. It's really important. You know, my life might have been different if I had got it earlier than I did. So I just want everyone who listens to this, go get a colonoscopy.
That's right. Go get a colonoscopy. It could save your life and make things heaps easier for those you love. If you're over 40 and you haven't done it yet, well, call your doctor and get it in the books. Now, normally I don't do public service announcements, but this one was very important, and I promised Al we'd get the word out. All right, you pukes, you've heard enough from me. Let's get into the Vinyl Guide conversation with Al Barile of SSD. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this week on the Vinyl Guide, very proud to have on the show Mr. Al Barile, who you may know from SSD and Xclaim Records. SSD's just done a huge set of re-releases through Trust Records. So if you're not aware, go to trustrecordscompany.com. And there's the reissue last year of The Kids Will Have Their Say, and recently announced the Get It Away reissue, which is going pretty quick. So get up there now if you want to grab one. Of course, Xclaim.bigcartel.com is where you get hats and books and all that other stuff. So, Al, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know it's not the easiest day, no?
Yeah, it's a little rough. I'm battling cancer right now, so it's been a little struggle.
Okay. All right. Well, I know it's been rough, so hopefully this will be a good conversation. We'll have some good laughs, and it'll, brighten the spirits there. So
distract me a little bit.
Yeah. We all need those distractions. So here we are, 2024, some 40 plus years since some of the records you made were released. Are you surprised at how much love there still is for these records? The kids will have their say, Get It Away, and others.
I guess I'm surprised that you would say that, but I'm not shocked because. When we put them out there, I knew, it'd be hard not to deny that, we put ours out in the 80s, that there was probably records from the 40s or the 30s, So, I was aware that, there was something called like little tiny records. I don't know whether they were 33. I don't even know what they were.
The 7 inches, the 45s, yeah.
No, but there was wasn't there something like...
the 78s. The 78s.
78, whatever. Yeah. There was different things, different formats and stuff. So, I was aware that there was collectability in there. I won't say that I was aware of it. It wasn't planned.
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows? Like with this music, like if it's how it's who's to really say how long its lifetime is going to be?
Yeah, but I guess the messages and the energy you guys put into it so many years ago is still very relevant today.
Yeah, but I think it's just hard to predict the future of music, right? At all. I wouldn't, if you predict 50 years ago what music would look like today, I wouldn't have predicted it, So
yeah.
I don't know if you can predict the sustainability. Certainly, I think you can kind of bank on one thing. If you're at the beginning of something, there's a chance you might stick around for a little while, To come at the end of something, I'm not so sure. So I did know we were kind of like at the beginning of this hardcore thing, and potentially the music, it wasn't my band. I was quite aware that there was tons of other bands that were going to have a long life period because there was good music being produced.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure to make that judgment on my music, but I certainly was aware of other people's music that I was pretty confident would still be around today.
So that's interesting because whenever I read and I see some of the documentaries on SSD and your role in it, you seem to really have been a scene leader from early on, a guy with a vision and the leadership that the scene seemed to require at that point. Would you agree with that?
Well, I overthink everything, I don't get up without a plan, everything to me is everything is spinning in my head all the time. From when I was whatever, teenager till now, today, I always get a plan. The plans always change and evolve, and so I think too much, But I like that, I believe I'd rather have someone that's thinking about things than not thinking about things. But I tend to really get into the minutia of things,
Yeah, and again, I think that's what the scene needed. It seems, and it's quite ambitious because not only were you starting a band, but you were starting to play guitar pretty much from scratch.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on.
And you made a record label, and you were leading this mob, which included Springa, which is no small feat. Yeah. So,
challenging times, yeah.
So a lot fell on your shoulders.
I look back on, I'm surprised I could take it all on, but I think I don't know. I just felt that. It was better to steer the ship than let it go off course or something, I felt early on that I could see the thing going a different way if I didn't try to take a leadership role into what was happening on all levels, the band, the label, the scene, everything, I could definitely see things and, going a different direction. So, I guess if that answers the question.
Yeah, well, you see things from different angles. Even when you guys would go play live, you'd stay in a motel, as I understand, and you would make sure that there's someone always watching the van or in the van so you didn't get stuff swiped.
Yeah, the number one thing at all times was protect the gear, But above anything else, I don't care if we were practicing, just driving from, point A to point B or staying overnight in Detroit or something. number one job was to protect the gear. If that wasn't achieved, then then there was nothing positive happening for that trip. So that was that was definitely the goal.
Yeah.
And I can say that we've never lost anything.
To this day, I still see a rack of them.
This day, I had one more band, Gauge, after SSD, and that band had the same ethos and never lost anything. And you have to kind of train the others to think that way too. You just can't be the only guy watching the gear. You have to get everyone to think that way. The roadies thinking that way, the other guys in the band thinking that way. But I won't get you wrong either. I'm not going to put Springer out there and think that he's going to protect the gear. So there's going to be a backup plan for Springer. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, yeah. A backup plan for some people, and some people I might have a little bit more trust.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's the sort of, again, leadership of someone who sees things from different angles, who anticipates risk and then manages around.
You got it right there. I analyze risk on everything. There's not a thing I don't do where I don't analyze risk, and everything. So you nailed that word. I'm a risk reduction and analysis. That's what I do on everything. Because I'm also an engineer. Now I thought this way before I became an engineer. I think thinking this way trained me, made me a better engineer. Or maybe it's just a combination of that's why I became an engineer. I don't really know, but certainly I do think differently than a lot of people. I think, and I definitely think from a risk standpoint.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all. I'm going to tell you the same. Same aspect of that. I'm also maybe the no fun guy. Because if you're managing risk all the time, things might not be fun. Might be as much fun as they could be, right? So I was aware of that too. I was aware of that I don't want to make it so I'm always considered the no fun guy. So it's a balancing act, but I think it's important to be aware of everything.
So with SSD, you guys seem to have jumped straight into an album with The Kids Will Have Their Say. No singles, nothing like that. It just straight to an album. That's quite ambitious. Was there ever consideration of kind of one of those mini steps before the full album?
No, not really. I don't think so. No. I mean, I wish to actually, your hindsight, I have looked back. I wish I was maybe into 7 inches more or something. Like I don't like, I really like the large format of a 12-inch disc, as far as the cover art and everything, which I can, and when I decided to, launch SSD, launch the label, you have to take into account like maybe some of the tendencies I have to what I like as far as music goes, right? As far as a 7-inch or 12-inch or like that. So, I like the visual aspect of a 12-inch. I remember times that, I'd go to like a chain store or record store and just get caught up in the album covers, right? Mm-hmm. And an album cover, at that point, an album cover might be the selling point for a record for me back in the late 70s, because radio wasn't, if it was out there, I wasn't well aware of what stations I should be listening to,
Now, when you guys were doing The Kids Will Have Their Say, there weren't as many private press punk albums out. I mean, a lot of people were still dealing in singles, Discord and whatnot. We're still dealing with a lot of singles. So it's again, I'll go back to that thing. It's pretty ambitious to jump straight.
It just was like, because I was never really a big 7-inch guy. And I also believe, I mean, while you're saying this, I'm trying to think beyond that, because I definitely know I wasn't a big 7-inch guy. I didn't want to be like a white sleeve 7-inch kind of thing. I didn't really, I don't know if I was aware or I didn't really want to pursue, but I wasn't really aware how Discord folded all those 7 inches up at the time. So I didn't take that on. By the time I was ready to make a disc, I'm just gonna make the cover. Like I made a contact. My contact was this guy, Michael Bastrach, which we call Mr. B on the back of our album covers. He had put out a couple albums up to that point, and Modern Method, which was the label of record chain Newbury Comics, had put out a couple records. So in Boston, people had, a little bit of history of putting out records, and they fell into my circle. I think someone put me in contact with Mr. B or whatever, and he gave me some of the names of the 12-inch, where to get the label, where to get the covers pressed, and where to do the albums. And I think the album place was in New Jersey, which seemed pretty doable. It was like, I could drive there. I remember thinking, so I'm like, oh, that makes sense. New Jersey, Hub Serval, I think the name was.
Yeah.
And so that's how we picked them. And I'm not quite frankly, I'm not even sure what else was out there around me. Mr. B put me in touch with these people, and that's what I went with.
Okay. So the records were pressed at Hub Serval in New Jersey.
Yeah, if someone can find the stampers, there'll be. I don't know what happened. Like obviously when they make them, the stampers and everything, and the company closed down a long time ago, and we never made contact with them before to get our final stampings things or whatever.
Yeah, they're probably sold for scrap.
I bet that's what I think. I don't know what they made, what material they're made out of, but I don't know, lead or something. I don't even know what they make them out of, but I imagine they were just melted down or whatever, sold.
But you made the covers elsewhere, so you guys had you got 1,000.
That was the
records.
deal. Now, if I could have made the covers at the same place, I would have. It was stipulated that this was the kind of deal. These covers, we printed the covers at this place in Canada, Ross Ellis, who had a New York office, but the covers actually were pressed in Canada. So this was the other thing that was handed to me. Like, I'm sure there were other places, but this is what I was told. Go to this place. Here's the pricing. It was kind of laid out for me. I wasn't gonna now reinvent the wheel since I already had this inroads. Maybe down the road, if I was gonna stay in the business, I would have talked to Ian and found out other places. But for me right now, this was a good inroads to start. I wasn't gonna start over guessing this point because like I said, I was taking a lot on.
So did you fund it primarily yourself, or
I funded. I had my father kind of wrote me some loans. I remember I have some handwritten things where my father wrote me some loans, and most of it was, a lot of it was my money because I was working at the time. But whatever, any real things in the couple thousands, I think he loaned me. But the funny thing is he loaned it me, I think, but the check didn't even clear. I already had his money back, because back then we sold the records COD. So we had our records. The mainstay of the records, or that first one, let's say, kids will just say, we printed, I think, I want to say let's just call it 1900 plus or minus 50. Okay, something like that. So with that quantity of covers and vinyl, I could swing that a little bit. I didn't have to really go in debt a lot. And I remember, paying them back really quick. I don't even know if you even missed the money, because I got the COD. And back then, you said, I think at the beginning of this, that this was still kind of new in the world, really. So these distributors at that point in time, 1981, maybe early 82, something, or 82, they were willing to they wanted product, and they were willing to pay for it. They didn't start. The stiffins started coming a few years later, where they stopped paying you. So at that point, they were paying, and they were paying quickly.
How quickly did the 1900 go?
They went instantly. Yeah.
Okay.
By the time I dropped off, on the way back from New Jersey, I dropped off a bunch at Independent in New York. Dropped off a bunch at Bleecker Bob's, and it might have been one more distributor in New York I might have dropped off by. I can't remember the name of it. And by the time I went home, maybe I had less than 1,000 left. And I can't remember how many, but it didn't take that long. I think we sold them to Rough Trade and maybe one other place. I'd say there's 3 or 4 distributors back then.
I understand you used 2 or 3 different studios in several different sessions over almost a year. Is that right?
Started out with Radio Beat Studios, which kind of, once again, when the hardcore studio was forming, the studio had opened up in Kenmore Square. Wasn't really germane to hardcore. Actually, was just a good local music studio. And from Lou working with us, he ended up, recording us in that first session. Then he ended up doing a lot of work for other bands at this studio, Radio Beat. So that was kind of his introduction to, I think, working at Radio Beat. And then Radio Beat was only 8 tracks. We didn't have good luck, man. Whatever reason, the recordings weren't matching what we were hearing in the rehearsal practice, most specifically down my cellar, which I'm sure most bands probably go through. I didn't go. This was my first experience at it, but I got to believe that most bands go through that like shock of hearing themselves on tape for the first time versus hearing themselves in the recording, in the rehearsal space. You hear something in rehearsal space, that quote live sound, and then you go into the studio and that live sound becomes a more sterile environment, And so that sterility was what we were trying to avoid. Took us time to kind of find a place where, in the end, the record ended up being like almost, we're going to put this record out to document it. It became like a record. At the end, it became more of a documentation. I'm not going to miss this period of time and not have anything from it. Like just waste that whole year or 2 years or whatever. So, whatever it took, we're going to document this period, So then we end up pulling up from Radio B and going to another studio and Active Sound, which was really the basement of this guy, Larry Lassade's father's basement. And that was in itself a challenge because his father didn't want us there. And that sounded better than the Radio B sessions, It sounded more like the sound that I had heard down the basement. But it still wasn't the sound that I thought, And so that's where we left it. We recorded it and basically said, I'm not sure if we had like an open discussion with the whole band, but I know what I was thinking. I was thinking, let's get this fucker out and move on.
Were you satisfied at the time with it, or do you feel it was like a series of compromises and there are things?
I wouldn't say compromises. I wasn't sure at the time what it was. Mm-hmm. It just didn't sound like we sounded down the basement. Okay, so my head was still spinning at this point. It wasn't really performance. I don't think. Although I don't think we, were an amazing performing band, but I don't think that was the problem. It just, it didn't feel like comfortable, it didn't feel like, I tell you, the one thing I do know we were is that when we played live or even in the studio or even in the rehearsal space, we were an impact band. We we made an impact, and so how do you make that impact in the studio? I didn't feel that impact being made, So that was the challenge. How do we get that like boom, in the studio? And that was so that till actually Gauge, I continued that search, So it took me 16 years to figure it out, I think, not actively recording in all those 16 years, but I'm saying I started recording again like in 94. Took me till about 96 to figure it out, I think,
You really are an engineer.
Yeah. I built a studio for it, to figure it out. That's how obsessed I was with it,
So when you listen to The Kids Will Have Their Say these days, do you hear the things that you would do differently, or can you enjoy it as the document that it is?
Okay, I don't enjoy it, number one.
Okay.
I'll be fully honest. I don't enjoy it because I do remember the heartache of making that record, okay? But I never analyzed the record. I've never analyzed the record and said, well, here's what I do differently. I've never done that. No.
Okay.
But I don't enjoy it. I do not enjoy it.
How does the current, the Trust reissue, which I understand went back to the tapes, and we could talk about that. Have you compared that with the original Xclaim? How do they sound different?
Well, I definitely did because, we had a in making these records, part of the challenge was, restoring these tapes, the tapes were, the history on the tapes is another thing. When I allowed Curtis from Tang to put out Power, the CD version, in like 91 or whatever, I gave him all the tapes, so he was the possessor of the tapes. And, over the years, I found out he had the tapes, and I said, hey, can you send me back the tapes? I want to remaster them in Pro Tools, And he sent me back some tapes. Little did I know, the tapes he sent me back were not the right tapes. He sent me back tapes he never should have been in possession of. They were tapes from these original Radio Beat sessions that were never going to go on the record, okay? That were never going to go on Power. And that's what he sent me back. I didn't know it at the time because I didn't have an 8-track tape machine. I didn't have any analog tape machines, right? So that was my challenge, was how was I going to get the analog tapes to my Pro Tools rig when I wanted them back in like the 2000s or whatever. Come to find out, he's a sneaky bastard. And by sending me these tapes, he's got all my original tapes. I know he does, but he says he doesn't have them. He's the only guy that have them. I checked all my producers. No one else has them. He has them because how do I know he has them? Because they made the power record. If he didn't have them, never had them, then no one would have had those, the power record wouldn't have come out. So he has all the tapes. He's got the tapes from, one record through 1 through 4, but whatever reason feels confident enough that he can steal the tapes from me and own our master tapes. He never had any right to any of our master tapes ever. Anyways, that's part of that story. Now, the tapes from my mother's cellar during the period where that second band is going on. There's like a flood down there. A lot of water gets in the tapes. The tapes look like mucky brown. Okay.
Now just for clarification, this was a backup tape for the Kids Will Have.
Well, let's just call them. I thought at that point, I still thought they were the real things. Okay.
Okay.
At that point, I still thought they were our master tapes. It's only after these mucky tapes, I remember taking photographs and sending them to Ian Mackay of Discord, and just to get people's opinions on, if these were recoverable. And everyone was like, wow, that's about the worst looking tape I ever saw. So anyways, by the time Trust Records rolled around, those tapes were still in the same condition. Well, Joe, I sent him back all the tapes once we signed the deal. He sent them to a restoration place, which he unwound the spools and everything, somehow cleaned the tape with a rag. I don't know what he'd used, but amazing restoration job. And that tape, and then then they sent me all the digital files back. I started looking at the tape. Looking at the files, and I'm like, this isn't what I'm not looking. This isn't right. This isn't right. Finally, one tape on there says safety copy of master, Kids Love to Say. So that's what we use, So we were lucky to find that in that batch. It really wasn't even supposed to be there. Okay. Might have been like a third generation safety of the master, it certainly wasn't the master. So anyways, that's how we end up making the record and how, meticulously cleaning those magnetic particles off that tape. That's how that was made. Yeah.
So, okay. But it's the same.
I wasn't sure if they ever could be recovered or not, but I figured there's still a way we could have made it, I figured there's still ways we could make the record. Like, we could have obviously went from vinyl to digital too or something, filtered out the pops maybe.
Yeah.
So anyways, I listened to the remastered versions and, it took a few times, and then I think I approved maybe third or fourth time. Slight little tweak, not big changes,
Okay, so they're the same performances from the original. It's just
they're the ones that are on the vinyl.
Okay, yeah. Same.
The only thing difference is the really the output levels. I'd say digital mastering from the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s is much different. Things are just louder. There's compressors make things louder. Multi-band compressors take certain bandwidths and can, make those bandwidths louder. So you can affect, bass, and you can kind of like almost remix a record in a way, by looking at those multi-bands and kind of changing the levels and compressing them differently. Mm-hmm. Maybe they EQ'd them a little bit, but I'm not a big EQ guy. I think the multi-band compression is where most of the bang for the buck is,
Okay. All right. So do you favor the original pressing, or the Trust pressing is more
sound-wise
pleasing to your ears? Yes.
Oh no, I think the remastered version is definitely more pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah.
Now, the fact that those records went so quickly, those 1,900 albums went, it was never repressed until recently, at least officially. What was your thinking about that? Hey there, all you record nerds. I want to tell you about bagsunlimited.com. Bagsunlimited.com has a huge selection of vinyl record supplies. Whether you collect LPs, 7-inch singles, 78 shellacs, or anything in between, bagsunlimited.com will sort you out. From polyline sleeves to cardboard record mailers to 7-inch storage boxes and archive quality record sleeves, protect your records of any size and shape at bagsunlimited.com. Whether you have a small personal record collection or you're running a massive record shop, you can grab a small supply or even buy in bulk at bagsunlimited.com. And they've got some really incredible, unique stuff. Bagsunlimited.com even has special size sleeves made especially to protect your box sets, storage boxes and sleeves for cassette tapes, protective supplies for reel-to-reel, and yes, even 8-tracks. Just go to bagsunlimited.com, Click on Audio Supplies and prepare to be impressed by all the options they have. That's bagsunlimited.com. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VinylGuide10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Now, the fact that those records went so quickly, those 1900 albums went, it was never repressed until recently, at least officially. What was your thinking about that?
Honestly, the thinking was not like, oh, let's create some collectible item. Thinking was, let's move on, like I told you the background of what it took to get to that record to come out. Yeah, the recording is that it's the exact same session, exact same recording, exact same, thing that is on tape. Like if you looked at the signal, I'm sure there's a mirror, some type of a mirror there. It's not going to fit exactly like the same signal, but it's not going to look much different, I don't think. As far as the waveform would go, I just think it's just a different. It's just mastered with different compression.
Yeah, I'd love to compare.
One of the tricks you might have too along the way, I'm not sure.
I'd love to compare them side by side, but an original pressing of that Kids Will Have Their Say generally goes for upwards of $2,000 these days.
Yeah, I don't know. Has the Trust Records affected its price? I'm not sure.
There'll always be people who want originals, so it's probably stabilized, I would say. But the Trust, that allowed me to finally be able to afford one. The only difference is you got that original sounding record. Yeah. But again, I think what Trust has done, and especially with the tapes and everything, it sounds brilliant to my ears. I just don't know how it compares to an original. The Kids Will Have Their Say, the 1900 records that were pressed, you said went really quick. I mean, you had...
Yeah, I remember I was driving back from New York, dropping them off along the way. I think by the time I got home, we still had orders with distributors like Rough Trade and a couple important records. I think actually I dropped them off at Important, but maybe one more. So we shipped out, and we did COD when we shipped out. That's something that people aren't familiar, but there's this thing called COD, cash on delivery, and it was a little sticker on there. And if you shipped out UPS with COD, to get the package, that person had to pay $450, $4,200 to receive the package. I'm curious why it ended, but it was a nice feature back then. So I got my money basically immediately upon shipping these records. So in turn, I was able to pay my father back. I really didn't even have the money for probably 90 days. I was able to turn it around and pay back that short-term loan. So that was a really good time maybe to be a label. But once again, I was putting out a record that we felt was somewhat flawed, in a way. It took us a real long time to record it. By the time we put it out, it was almost like to document the period. We didn't want to just, we didn't want this to disappear, but we had a difficult time capturing that period, That's the honest to God truth,
What's a little bit curious to me is those records sold out so quickly, but there really had never been a repress for 40 years almost. It seemed like a...
Never really got that tempted to do it. I mean, there was one period when I formed my second band, Gauge, and was, getting back into basically, putting it out on my own again. And we thought about, that it probably would really help Gauge, would help the label get going again to jump off with a title that people wanted, because I didn't think they were going to want Gauge at the beginning, and I didn't really use any of my hardcore background for that band at all. I chose to kind of stay relatively anonymous with that background. But I mean, it did cross my mind that I thought it would be a better. That's the only time I really thought about repressing it.
Right, because it never even really came out on CD. Until
no, the CD part was when I think I maybe started that story, but maybe a little bit before that is when the CD thing came. I went to a record store and noticed that there was no more records in the shelves anymore. And there's a little couple year gap where I was finishing my degree at Northeastern for engineering, and I wasn't really totally in touch with music and what was going on, and maybe hadn't bought a record for a while. And then I realized CDs had overtaken the whole industry. I mean, that's how I guess in the dark I was at that point. I heard about these CDs, compact discs and high quality and stuff, but I didn't know how much they had taken over the record stores, the old record stores. I thought it was still like a technology for like, audio enthusiasts. I wasn't sure, but man, I saw it. I was like, wow, this is I didn't see any records anymore. I just saw like, small jewel cases and stuff. And I was like, big thing. And I was like, when I immediately saw that day, I said, well, I don't want our record to die on the vine. I didn't want it to die. I never wanted to die. I thought it could live, a little bit. So, and not necessarily that record, our music at that point, because this is now 1991, when I had this thought, maybe even 89. And I don't know when CDs came out, but somewhere in that 3-year period, I believe. And that's when I started having the idea that maybe, because I'd been approached, people to put that, re-release the record. I know everyone wanted to put that record out in its exact format, and I wasn't going to do that. So I decided to come up with this kind of concept called greatest hits. I can't really say that because we're not a greatest hits band, but to kind of put the best cuts on a CD. That was the idea. Let's take all the cuts we had from all 4 records actually at that point, and put them on a CD and make it a greatest of, or whatever you want to call it. And, I called it Power. So that was my title and everything. And Tang happened to be just there at the same time, at the right time. And they were starting out, and I thought they were the right vehicle. He was a friend at the time, and I thought he was a friend. And so I let him do it, but, that's the probably biggest regret I ever had, was maybe not so much putting that record out, but putting it out with him,
Right.
That's my biggest regret.
Wasn't Power? It is like a greatest hits, but it's a lot of the offcuts as well. What were those the original?
It included offcuts.
Okay.
Yeah, included some things that weren't on the records, kind of like as a carrot to him. I don't think he, maybe he wasn't. I don't know if he. The third and fourth record wasn't so popular, so maybe he didn't want those songs on the record. I don't even know. I never really get down to it. I just told him, here's what's going on. I dictated what was going on. And then I think I opened the door a little bit to allow like maybe some outtakes or whatever we could find. And, if it made sense to me, I wasn't going to let something that, if there's an outtake, there's usually a reason it's outtake. But if it made sense, at that point, it was even more of a documentary kind of thing, documentarian kind of, because I thought, this CD might outlive these vinyl pieces. At the point, I wasn't even sure what vinyl, the future of vinyl, would it hang around? I mean, of course it was going to hang around because, I know all those formats hang around, but, would it really sink to a death like those 78s, I mean, I don't hear too many people talking about 78s right now. Hey, let's trade some 78s. I'm sure there's an underground, thing for that, but I don't hear it that often. So, I was thinking that maybe it will be like the 78s or something. So bottom line is I wanted to keep SSD on the in the what's the right word, in the not ethos, but in the whatever,
You wanted it accessible, right?
I just wanted people to know who we were,
right.
and what that time period represented. I didn't want to be the guy responsible for having that die on the vine, because my attitude at that point, up to that point, was really anti-business. There was a chance that these weren't going to be on the because I already decided. No, I put them out, and I decided that I wasn't going to re-release them. So I was trying to be the opposite of what I was actually, trying to almost be the opposite of my instincts. Put out this record with him. Do everything that was opposite what I would have done, in a way.
Now, at what point did you start to hear word of, I guess, the value of The Kids Will Have Their Say, the vinyl kind of starting to
I think
out the roof?
It wasn't actually pretty, I can't say when, but within a year, I think, of the, within a year of them selling out, I knew that they immediately had some type of inflated value, maybe the first time I heard it was like $40 or something, like $30 or something, but not in the hundreds yet,
Right.
and or maybe by 91 it had reached into the hundreds. I can't really remember, but first time I heard it, that it had inflated value was like $40 or something like that,
Okay. So you knew that people were out there seeking it.
I knew early on that people wanted the record, yeah.
Okay.
And I knew because I knew there was collectors, I could see there was people, and I can't say I was ever a collector, but there was a point in my life where, I was into the vinyl, but it didn't last long because for me, this is the most interesting thing. I'm not sure if other people ever thought the way I thought, but when I started the band and the band started to really, write a lot of material, I found it very difficult to really buy other people's music and listen and write my own stuff. Like I found it very, it would you'd fill your head with other people's songs in your head and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been as early as like 84 that I realized that I had to stop buying records, So I made the personal sacrifice to stop buying records, really, So I don't own a lot of quote classic, pieces of vinyl maybe because I got out of it by then. I had decided that I couldn't do both. It was impossible to do both.
Right. Well, you've got I remember you telling the stories about buying the early Discord releases. Do you still have you hung on to those, or did those disappear?
No, I had hung on to them at that point, but interesting enough, my producer, Mr. Mike Bastarash, I think around that same time period, 90, 91, 89, maybe even, he started getting into the trading vinyl or something, because he was on, there wasn't an internet yet. He was on some kind of list where he would like trade with people through mail, and maybe phone calls, but maybe through mail, I think mostly. They had this like mailing list I think people would send out or something. I don't really know. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing some kind of mailing list. And Mike was part of that. So he came over to my house one day to kind of get my records, Other than that, I still would have had them probably to this day because I don't really sell vinyl. I never was to selling and trading vinyl. Mm-hmm. And they would have just been at the bottom of a bin still, But he came over and really wiped me out pretty early on before the prices had got really high, Yeah. And I just said, yeah, whatever you want to do, sell them. I don't care. And he thought he was, doing me a favor, I guess, or something. I don't know. Like whatever he paid me, it wasn't a big, like it didn't change my life, So like whatever I just said, fine, whatever. He gave me a couple $100 maybe at the end of it. Didn't really phase me either way or the other, Like I had the couple $100 or I didn't,
Well, who would have known?
Yeah, and I think he might have grabbed some sealed kids too at the end. Like I might have had like, 10 or 20 sealed ones and maybe some get it away. I was really fair when the band broke up. I went through whatever vinyl I'd hung on. Like I usually hung on to a couple boxes of everything, like even though I was out of kids will to say I was out of it, but I mean I hung on to like a box of them or something, So I might have had 25 to 50 or whatever. So we split them up with the band,
Okay.
I mean, I could have hung on to them, but I split them up with everyone, right down the line.
Do you still have any of those in your personal stash?
No, those, I think those are long gone. I might have one or something, I don't know if I probably don't even have a sealed one,
Yeah. Last time I saw one in decent shape, it was, I think, $1,800.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I would have I have, something inside me would have difficulty selling my record to someone for 1,800 or whatever, I mean, I'd have to clear some moral block in front of me to do that, with my integrity is like not like to allow that, kind of.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a big deal, but I mean, somehow here's the deal with me. I've been great at producing content and making stuff, but I've always had trouble selling it, something inside me. I just don't there's no con man in me, and I'm not a salesman. I don't have that sales kind of thing, where my attitude is like, buy it if you want. I don't give a fuck if you don't want it kind of guy, I mean, my records, buy them if you want. If you don't fucking want them, I don't give a fuck, that's kind of my attitude,
So with Kids Will Have Their Say, and I'm holding up the white version.
I like that white version there. That's they did a great job. I mean, I loved when I saw that. I'm like, oh yeah, and I immediately knew this is going to be a collectible right here.
Yeah. So this is a version Bryan Ray Turcotte made. Was there an original vision for what the cover of The Kids Will Have Their Say be that's different than the black one that they have today? Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream. Made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents, these gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle. Was there an original vision for what the cover of The Kids Will Have Their Say be that's different than the black one that they have today?
Like, no, I just let them run with it. Whatever they want. They want to create an alternative cover version and stuff. I said, yeah, like when I decided to do business with Trust, a lot of people would think I would want to go back in there and start telling them what to do. I gave them suggestions and ideas and concepts that I had. And actually, I talked to Joe Nelson for a couple of years before we even decided to do it about some of my concepts. And, I had kind of studied it a little bit, and thought my actual original concept would have been to do both records combined in a box set, like maybe a metal box or something metal. I want, not metal because it's metal, but, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I wanted something mechanical. And then I realized when I thought about it, I was like, someone would probably kill themselves with this device if it fell off this metal thing I wanted to make. It fell off like a shelf or something and kill them. So I said, I don't want to get in the liability of creating this killing device. So I said, nah, I bet, so I just essentially said, I'm not going to get involved in what I want. If I sign up with someone else, I'm gonna let them do what they want, So that was my attitude with the Trust records, to let them basically do it. I mean, if there's something that I really objected to, I would have said something, but and they ran everything by me. But as long as it was, as long as I wasn't really objected to it, I was gonna let it go. I wasn't gonna let my opinion change something.
Yeah. No, I love this cover. What I was meaning was more the original cover with the black background as it came. Was that the original concept for the album cover?
Yeah.
Always? Okay.
Yeah, the original concept is us. We did some photo shoots and us running up the State House, because I kind of knew the title was going to be The Kids Will Have Their Say. So I was trying to think of something that would be appropriate, that would fit, So that's where I came up with that. And we went down there, and like some people don't understand, but there's very little that I do in life that isn't planned, So, that was planned, Like some people don't think we just ended up there at that spot, shooting this album. No, that was kind of planned, So I wasn't sure if it was gonna, when you think of these things, sometimes you think it might be too hokey, but you have a vision of an image versus in a title, but until you see it, you're not sure. And I don't want to, I'm not a fan of the cheese, so I wasn't going to put out cheese, So when I saw the image, I was like, yeah, this image is it, And they just, cut around the background and made the black sky,
Okay. All right. That vision was baked in.
Yeah, that was going to be, the title was going to be The Kids Will Say, and that was definitely the title. And that it was like, that was the concept of the album, really, like this is what we are, really, we're a bunch of kids that don't even know how to play our instruments barely, and but we're going to be heard one way or the other,
Now, the back cover, did you do the mock-ups, or who did the mock-ups to create the artwork?
The original was done by Bridget, our friend Bridget, who was going to school for graphic arts, I believe, at the time. And Bridget, she laid it all out on our old board, with Electroset, like rub-on typeset.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's how you did it back then, I think, or at least that's how she did it,
Do you still have the cover art and the mock-ups?
We had it. We might have sold it to Bryan, I think, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like there was a period where my wife was going through a lot of stuff we had, and we were losing stuff through a lot of moves, And when we moved to this last house, she kind of got more involved in some of the SSD archive stuff, and then the internet had started, and she started doing the Facebook page, the band Facebook page. So she had kind of got more involved in the minutia of the band, and that's when she started like selling some stuff,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So she sold some original artwork. I think that layout might have been sold and other things like that,
Okay. Do you still have the original artwork from Pusshead for Get It Away?
We had both. Yeah, both pieces were around, and I can't remember. I think the bass player still has some of the artwork for. But I think during the re-release, we sent it out to Trust, so they might have it right now. It's not as overwhelming and nice looking as that layout. I believe it was. Maybe the technology had changed a little bit by that time.
Right. So talk to me about how things started to change with Get It Away, because it seems the kids will have their say. You went from studio to studio, starting to put it all together. Now you had a bit of experience. How did the experience with recording and developing Get It Away change from the kids?
Get It Away was recorded like in a 16-track studio, so we got 8 more tracks, So, there's more potential. Now, I don't even know if we utilized those 8 more tracks. Like I said, at that time, I really wasn't involved in producing the band or recording the band. I was still trying to concentrate on all the other parts of the band that I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I hadn't really signed up for that. And then I told you years later, Engage, that was one of my weaknesses I felt, and I wanted to improve upon, the understanding of recording and stuff. So by 94, I had built my own studio, but prior to that, I still let Mike and Lou handle the recording, but we went to a 16-track studio, and it was less. I remember that. I just remember it as less pressure and less tension. Still was kind of intimidating, the room wasn't really natural for us to play in. I remember, we had the amps in separated rooms and stuff. So it was wasn't comfortable, let's say still, but we got the track, we got it down,
You were much happier with the results of Get It Away than you were.
Yeah, we
at the
could
time.
tell that things sounded better, already. And Francois had joined the band by the time we retract that record too. So just having him in the band, created more possibilities, because, I wasn't going to sit there and layer all these separate guitar tracks. I probably had one track in me. That was it,
Right.
So, I didn't have that. If I had the vision of what I heard, I couldn't play it, put it that way,
Was Get It Away always envisioned as an EP, or was there some thinking
I was just record whatever songs we had, it wasn't necessarily, where the mission was. We were making a record on kids will say we're set out to make a record. I'd say we were just recording at this point, with the hopes of putting out a record,
Right.
By the way, you look like my drummer so much. Every time I look up, sometimes I think you look like my drummer.
He's a very handsome man, so thank you.
No, he looks like, you guys look close. You both have a good full head of hair too.
Yeah.
But every time I look, I think I'm talking to my drummer. But we were just gonna take another stab at recording. We knew we had some good songs, that, maybe we knew we didn't have enough of them, but we also knew we were gonna like start doing like a tour, we're gonna go to California, I shouldn't even say tour, because we didn't do that, but we're gonna go to California. So, we were still, we weren't totally proud of that first effort. So we wanted to come up with something better,
So from what I understand, the kids will have their say. You recorded in different batches, different studios. I guess it sounds like it was probably you're running the same kind of playbook for Get It Away. Let's record a batch of songs here, and then maybe we'll get to some later.
No. That was not the playbook. That was what we end up having to do, but that wasn't the playbook. Playbook would record the songs, and that would be it,
Okay.
But we didn't. The first time we recorded Get It Away, everything sounded okay, so we didn't have to go record it again. We just recorded one time.
And after that recording session in that 16-track studio, you said, "Okay, that's it. Let's start to put this out. This is now a finished product."
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but that would have probably been my mentality, because we weren't going to wait to write some more songs, I don't think.
So for Get It Away, there were 5,000 copies pressed, as I understand.
They're like 4,800. You know, like on both. I tried to go like, Kids Let's Say was supposed to be 2,000, end up being 1,800, whatever, 1,900.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing in Getaway, supposed to be 5,000, ended up being like 4,826 or something. I don't know.
Okay. And did those go as quickly as the kids?
Not at that speed. No. Much slower. And I had some people start paying, getting my money became difficult, on that record.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not a COD thing like the other one, It seemed like in the period between 82 and 83, a lot more independent labels must have popped up, a lot more bands making records, because the distributors and the stores, they wanted titles, but they didn't want them as bad as they wanted them in 81, 82, By 83, they became more the guy in charge of when you get paid and stuff,
Yeah. By this time, you're kind of running a bit of a label with Xclaim because you've got other bands in there as well.
Well, I never wanted to be a label. So I told those guys, because I was going to be a label, I would have had put them in the studio and stuff. And if I had more control over the studio, I would have done it. I would have done it differently. But I was wondering if these other bands would go in the studio and it'd be unproductive too, And then, like I was making like, $10 an hour or $7 an hour at the time and stuff. And, rent the studio was like 15 an hour. So the math didn't really work for me. I'm working and the studio's cost me twice as much,
Mm-hmm.
So that was the big problem. If I had had success right out of the bat or had my own studio, we would have been probably more conventional label, but I just said to these guys, hey, you want to do it? Do what we did, go record on your own, find the money somehow, and then find the money to put it out on your own too, like the way I did it,
So for like FU,
but I wanted them. I said, when they came to me, I said, I think using the title might help, because it made it confusing in the end for the distributors paying everyone, because Xclaim was like 3 people at that point, it was like the FUs, Jerry's Kids, and us, but it worked for me. I didn't mind it.
Okay.
Didn't bother me.
So they were just using FUs and Department of Youth Services.
They just used the title, really,
Okay,
yeah.
But they managed everything themselves
commission.
and maybe some of your contacts then.
Yeah, I would help them, like if I could, but I wasn't going to really put the records out myself. I wasn't going to find myself not getting paid by their records too. At that time I had already seen the writing on the wall was, it was getting harder to get the money, part of it. So if I had still got the money on COD, I probably would have kept things going,
The tapes for Get It Away, did they have a similar fate as the tapes for The Kids That Have Their Say, or have
all the tapes? Yeah, when they were putting together the Power record, all the tapes ended up with Curtis because that's how we made Power. Let's be real. I mean, he denies he has the tapes, but they couldn't have made Power without having the tapes. Mm-hmm. So they got all the tapes. I think Mike and Lou gave them all the tapes, and I never got them back. So
okay,
same deal. He stole my master tapes. Or he didn't, or he lost them. He either stole them or lost them.
Right. So would you start to do this reissue with Trust? What is the source of Get It Away? Was it a similar issue that you had to clean up tapes like the Kids, or was it a different source?
No, when I went back to look at that, that bunch of tapes that he had sent me back, that ended up being all outtakes from, recording sessions from Kids Love to Say that were never used, which, I guess if someone wanted to put them out someday, I mean, it'd be cool, I guess, but they sound like they just sound like the Kids Love to Say. It's nothing really great on there. Anyways, when I went to go examine what I found, I could not find the analog version of Get It Away. So we end up using a digital version I had accumulated, from that period,
Okay. All right.
It's like a DAT version of it.
Okay. All right. So it's not a needle drop. It's a
no,
digital.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't use the needle, but we were thinking about possibly going that route.
But in the end,
we decided to use the digital version I had.
So do you know if the other Xclaim artists, FUs, Department of Youth Services, if if those tapes exist, or do you have anything to do with those at all?
Yeah, I'm not into that minutia. No, I don't know. You'd have to ask those guys. I imagine, I'm going to tell you right now, I bet the story's exactly the same, that they can't find their tapes. And I bet I know who's got their tapes. Mr. Curtis Casella on the West Coast, that would be my guess. But, I'm only speculating. I don't know that. But I think that, because I think Tang also re-released FUs and re-released Jerry's Kids. So I believe that Tang probably has their tapes too. But maybe they were better at it. Once again, my fault, my mistake. I should have been more involved in that actual mastering of those things. Because I look back on it, the mastering was really terrible. They did a lousy job. I'm not even sure if the mastered versions ended up being on Power. To be truthful, I wondered what versions end up being on Power, because to me it doesn't even sound like the mastered versions that I remember on Power. So I don't know. It's a good question. I blame myself. I should have been more hands-on. At that point, I was trying to be more hands-off, and I get what I get. I get other people involved in my life that shouldn't be. He shouldn't be involved in my life right now. He never should have been. He shouldn't have got the record. I mean, that Tang Power record served one purpose, and I'll always say is that he fulfilled what I told you about how that CD thing. There was a CD void, and we now had a record in that realm. So a lot of people, I'm sure, in the '90s, heard about the band that would not have heard about him, or just would have been more maybe a record collector thing, or maybe who knows, maybe it would have been. Maybe it would have been better to not have, but I don't know. I like the fact that in the '90s people got a chance to hear some of our stuff. I like that.
Yeah. It kept it alive.
Power was a success. It's not a failure. I wish I had done it differently, only because how it ended up now, because he turned into be such a really bad guy, and not a fan of the band at all, But if that hadn't been the case, maybe I would have a different attitude.
So with the reissue of Get It Away, many fans, again, those two records, the kids will have their say in Get It Away, are just kind of the core, the beloved albums. Is this kind of the conclusion of the reissues? Are you going to think about going to How We Rock?
Yeah, I think Joe had mentioned possibly pursuing the next two records. I mean, at some level, maybe releasing a box set at some point down the road. Because of my cancer, I don't think I'll be here for that. But I hope whatever they do, it comes out well,
Now, I can totally cut this out if you want. Is there any comment, or do you want to share kind of what's happening health-wise?
Yeah. No, health-wise is, I've learned a lot of. I mean, I had a bad health situation even before cancer. My spine's been operated on 8 times, and I'm fused from L5S1 up to T6, so a real long fusion, which had really sacked my life. Around 2008, I think 18, I had that surgery, 19. And after that surgery, I struggled with my health. I really struggled. I mean, I struggled with my health going back to 2002, okay? But after that big surgery, where I lost my job around the same time, I worked for G for 35 years. They pushed me out the door. So I was out the door without a job, and I decided to try to get my back fixed, and I had this big operation, and it turned out to be really bad. Roll the clock, 5 or 6 years later, I get cancer all of a sudden, ass cancer, which is even worse. And in December, I had I had to have a complete removal of my rear end, and I have a colostomy bag, and really terrible situation. And then my cancer was, had radiation and chemo, and it shrunk, but now it appears to have grown back right now. So it's grown back. I have terrible neuropathy in my feet, my hands. I can't play guitar. I can't even barely walk right now from this neuropathy, which you get from chemo. Like, if any musicians are out there who have cancer, be real careful. There are some drugs that cause really bad neuropathy, and I might even suggest avoiding those drugs, because in the end, I get cancer again. So what did it really do? What it did was left me with tremendous neuropathy, which I can't even explain. But the only way I could explain it is just imagine if your feet and your hands were like maybe 50 to 75% numb, with no feeling in them. That's what neuropathy is, It's kind of it burns a little bit, but it's mainly numbness, So I'm a wreck right now, and currently the tumors come back. I'm going through chemotherapy again, and just last week I had to go to the hospital. So I've been in the hospital 2 times in the last month, and things are tough.
Mm. Okay.
But I'm doing the best I can. I'm fighting. I know I have a lot of support on Instagram and Facebook. I got a lot of Facebook friends out there pulling for me. I'm doing the best I can. I'm fighting like hell, but this is a tough battle. This is the toughest. I don't see this. I don't see the enemy. I just hear reports of it. Oh, your cancer markers are up again. My cancer markers are started to go up a couple months ago. So now that's where they started the chemo up again. But they can't go in there and just cut the tumor out again. It's attached to something right now, and so
Well,
I imagine I'll probably live for a couple of years, maybe, or less. But probably not much longer than that.
Yeah, my dad had bowel cancer as well, and they removed everything, and he had a colostomy bag, and he went over a decade.
Oh, Jesus!
And the way he died was he fell over, so it had nothing to do with that. And you got to be hopeful.
I hope that turns out for me, but
science kicks ass these days, so hopefully it'll do the same for you.
I mean, just I got everything so far has not indicated I've got that breakthrough. Even when they said my cancer was shrinking, my tumor, remission or whatever, I didn't trust them, and sure enough, the thing's grown back already. In a spot where they didn't think it would ever grow again. I was more focused on where it was going to spread to next. Was it going to go to my lungs next, my liver, my kidneys? But it's turned out it's grown back in my ass area, or bowels or whatever.
Well, there's a lot of people that are, I guess, sending you positive thoughts for whatever that's worth. But
right.
we're watching it. We're watching you online and wishing you well, man. So, Al, we're getting ready to wrap up. Is there anything you want to share or anything you want to say?
I just think everyone should go get a colonoscopy. It's really important. My life might have been different if I'd got it earlier than I did. So I just want everyone who listens to this to really seriously think about getting a colonoscopy, because you don't want to end up like me. And if you can avoid it, it's not that hard now. They make drinks to help you with the flush. I was always concerned about how I was going to do the purge, but they make medications and things to make it really easy now. So I wouldn't be intimidated by the process at all. Go get a colonoscopy.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Again, if my dad had gotten something checked a little bit earlier, maybe he'd still be around, giving me shit today. But yeah, everyone, please go get your colonoscopy. And I think you got to get one if you're over 50. You got to get one every couple of years. Is that right?
I think the U.S., I think they even went down to 40 now. Like somehow they've lowered the age. More young people are getting bowel cancer.
Yeah.
So if one person gets that message from this podcast, then the entire thing was worth it on Nate's part and my part. Yeah. So please go out and do it.
Look after yourselves. Yeah. There seems to be a lot of celebration around SSD in recent years. Obviously, you're doing the reissues. You've got a book out. There's a documentary online. You're really starting to pull all these different elements together, the whole story of SSD.
Well, the book was a long effort. We always thought the band was a very photographic band. We had some amazing photos. We had an embedded photographer who was Phil Spring, who was Singer's brother. So he came on a lot of road trips with us. He actually, I wish he had taken more pictures, but we're thankful what he did take. He's the guy that shot the cover too of Kids Will Just Say. But so we had a lot of good. So it was really to highlight his work as much as the band. It's not like photographs. It's not a bunch of photographs with all different photographers. It's only his photographs. And there's some really special ones in there. So I'm so happy that book came out. My wife was able to do the writing behind it, to tell the stories. And a lot of that came from the stories on Instagram, and the stories are great. So, I'm real happy that came out in the last year. And I think it's a good compliment for the records being re-released. And, if someone buys the records, wants to know more about the band and get a feel for it, I'd suggest they buy the book, How Much Can You Take? I think they'll get a different appreciation for the band. But we're a very live band, like we play. Most people were stricken. We're taking I'm gonna say we blew people away, because I don't know what we did, okay? But I knew that the reaction when I came off stage was generally positive,
Mm-hmm.
And I know we left it out. We left it all out on the stage. I gave it everything I had when I was out there. I didn't leave anything. That everything got out of me. I gave every ounce of energy when we played. I tried to make those shows and it's not like I tried to make them. When I played, or when we played, I felt like this potentially might be our last show. That's kind of my attitude going into it, is that we might not recover from this one. This might be the last one, just from the chaos and the physicality on stage and the unpredictability on stage. I wasn't sure, a fight could break out at any moment, or I could break my back at any moment. It just was like, anything could happen was my attitude. And I lived that live performance thing with that attitude, so I think the pictures are kind of reflective of that.
Yeah, they look beautiful. It's like the negatives have been totally cleaned and preserved as well. Another thing I like about the book is the flyers, the preservation of a lot of flyers. I actually have, I'll show you, this is an original flyer from when you guys played LA.
Oh,
Los Angeles, and Red Hot Chili Peppers down below. I believe this is the show where Anthony Kiedis went missing and Keith Morris filled in for him.
Right. Oh yeah, famous show. Got a big roller rink, big place.
What do you recall about that show? The Olympic.
The Olympic. So that was, I think, we played the Olympic two final times in LA. 3 big shows in LA. We played Santa Monica Civic, then we came back, played that show, and then I think we played one more show after that. So I might have these two mixed up, but I think it was a pretty good show. I remember. I think it was a pretty good show.
Mm-hmm.
It was chaotic. A lot of people on stage. I know the last 2 times we played at that place, it was like, I'm not sure if it was this show or the other one, but there was a lot of people on stage. Like, if you saw, there's videos of it, not well-known videos, but some videos, I believe, and we're drowned out by the people on stage. People were really stage hanging around, if that's the right word. People really were hanging around that stage, that performance.
Yeah, I think you talked a little bit about that in the book. And again, look, I know I want to be respectful of your time. I want to remind folks, there's a lot of SSD stuff that has been made available to us in the last 12 months. There's a huge drought for many decades. And now we just got the Kids Will Have Their Say reissue. We're getting the Get It Away reissue. That's available right now. Both of those, actually, you could order from trustrecordscompany.com. They've done a great job of preserving the records. Kids Will Have Their Say is gorgeous. I believe Get It Away will also have the original flyers and lyric sheet in there. There's the book, How Much Art Can You Take? That's at xclaim.bigcartel.com, as well as some other SSD shirts and hats and things like that. There's also a fantastic documentary that's up on YouTube. You can just go up and enjoy it right now. It's about 20 minutes, and it tells the history of SSD. And again, it just kind of goes into a lot of the topics. Some of the topics we've talked about today, show some great live footage. And I'm so glad that all these things, SSD, are coming together. Al, we really wish you the best, mate. Thank you so much to you and Nancy and everyone for putting together these packages and making them available. We're thoroughly enjoying it. We wish you the best of luck in your health, and we hope to see you causing trouble for decades to come, mate.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been, I've enjoyed this.
Oh, man, there he is. The man, the legend, Al Barile, SS Decontrol and Xclaim Records. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Big thanks to Nancy Barile for helping put this together. And again, I want to remind folks, The Kids Will Have Their Say is out there on vinyl, and you can order Get It Away as well at trustrecordscompany.com. I think Get It Away is shipping now. If it's not shipping already, it'll be shipping soon. So getting quick. There's a couple of very cool variants there. Trustrecordcompanies.com and xclaim.bigcartel.com. Check out the book, How Much Art Can You Take? And a quick reminder, there's an extended version of this interview available only to show patrons. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. And thank you so much for your time. All right, that's it for this episode of the Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Huge thanks to those of you who are sharing these episodes on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, putting it up on Reddit forums and Facebook groups. That's hugely appreciated. And of course, those of you who are leaving positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, well, that's very much appreciated too. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.